Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Bourbon Lens. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. And don't forget, Father's Day is right around the corner. Make sure you go over to manscaped.com. They have a huge sale going on. Take advantage of the sale, and then at checkout, use code BourbonLens for 20% off your order and free shipping. When I think about summer, I think about one thing important: making sure you're taking care of yourself in all facets of the game. And their Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner will change the way you approach your hygiene routine. Trust me, fellas, when I say this, your balls will thank you. And I want to say thank you for everyone for listening to this episode of The Bourbon Lens, as I'm solo today. And I feel like Mike Greenberg a little bit. If you have watched Greeny on ESPN, as I sit here and I do a read and I have what I'm going to talk about in front of me. But there's not been a time where we've done the Bourbon Lens solo. So I'm excited for this. If you are familiar with our Instagram platform for many Thursdays, and in the future we will bring these back, Thursday Thoughts, where I sit down typically by myself and I pour a few beverages and give you my thoughts. And one of the distilleries that has shown up time and time again on Thursday Thoughts is High Bank Distillery Company. So that's who we're going to be talking about today. And they have 3 new releases that they sent us, and these will have come out on Friday. This podcast released on Monday. A couple things that I'm super excited about, just to talk about the summer, where Bourbon Lens is going, is our new podcast that we're going to release as well. So on Wednesdays moving forward, starting 6/8, so this Wednesday coming up when this podcast releases, we will have our first Off Hours with Bourbon Lens featuring Jake Ireland. What is Off Hours with Bourbon Lens? Off Hours with Bourbon Lens is a way for us to tell the stories behind the brands, and not just the conversation about how do you distill, how do you, get your wheat, your crop, whatever. How do you make your liquid unique from everyone else? That's great. We love that story. And we're going to continue to tell that on the main channel. But the Wednesday podcast in particular will launch a new way for us to tell stories from a different perspective. So we sit down with Jake Ireland first, who is the founder and CEO of Off Hours, and we just talk about him and his life, right? What's going on with Jake, the individual, and we're going to do that with a variety of people. We have the Daily Dram, or Brandon is going to join us. I'm going to interview my wife. Scott, I believe, is going to interview his wife. We're going to tell you a little bit about what we do. Christian Huber just agreed. Our buddy Marcus at Four Roses agreed. Mike Montgomery from Blue Run agreed. So we have some really great guests that are going to be joining, and we'd love to hear about who you would want to know about that story. We're going to reach out to quite a few people. We're going to spread it wide as we run this 12 episode podcast through the summer. And we're really excited and hope to continue that into the future as well. So that's what's coming up from that perspective on the Bourbon Lens. Other than that, man, it is hot, but it's so fun having a son, going out and playing outside, hitting the sprinkler, or just running around playing tag. This is the weather, but it is hot, sweaty hot. And I rolled around in the grass today and was so itchy for 30, 40 minutes after that. And it was unbearable. And I'm just excited for this summer in general. Weather's shaping up. I can't believe it's already June. That's crazy. It seems like we were talking about Derby on the podcast like yesterday. And now here we are. We're talking about June. We're talking literally Father's Day is 2 weeks away. And, it just goes by so quick. It never ceases to amaze me how fast things go throughout the summer. The days get longer, but dang, do the days also feel like they go by in rapid succession. So, really excited for the longer days, bonfires, hanging out with people and understanding what's going on. And the other thing, we got some more barrel picks coming up. And so those are fun to, mess with and, have you all give us reviews on those. So as we think about that, I'll be sipping some barrel picks coming up and, in the back porch, hopefully with a variety of people and getting those gone, because I don't want to hold on to them for forever, because, whiskey's made to be drank, and I'm excited to drink some whiskey with some friends over the summer. And I don't know about much of your all's opinion on this, but my opinion is summer is a rye time. I drink a lot of rye in the summer. A lot of people will switch to clear spirits or tequila or what have you, and that's fine. I think rye, that citrusy rye mash bill that I like, is my summertime drink, and excited to, pour some neat pours of that and enjoy some rye whiskey this summer. But speaking of whiskey, I have a variety of different offerings from High Bank Distilling Company. High Bank is really unique. They have the Whiskey War lineup, and in this opportunity and release, they have 3 of them. So starting from my right to my left, we'll have the cask strength Whiskey War aged in second fill Sauvignonese wine barrels. So I apologize if I messed that up. Any of my wine constituents that drink wine, please tell me how ignorant I am in the show notes or in the comments. Cask strength Whiskey War aged in Spanish Madeira wine barrels. Be really honest with you, I've never had a Madeira cask before, so excited to try this one. And then, you heard about this on the podcast a couple weeks ago. We did a barrel aged gin episode, and so this one is High Bank Cabernet Whiskey Barrel Aged Gin. So aged in Cabernet Sauvignon barrels that previously aged batch number 2 of Whiskey War Barrel Select. So this one's really interesting. I'm excited for this. I've gotten really into gin, and I do really like this idea of Statehouse coming from the capital of Ohio. So I really like what they're doing there. This is a really unique, just overall, from a clean branding perspective, High Bank has done some really cool things. They remind me a lot of Off Hours from a just branding perspective, clean lines. I think that's something aesthetically pleasing that a lot of people don't think about when you're picking up a bottle of whiskey or gin in this case. Sometimes aesthetics matter, right? People love those goofy looking bottles or really clean lines. And I say goofy looking bottles, like the Blanton's bottle really doesn't have a great place in today's lineup. It's that weird looking bottle, or there's some cognacs that are just round, or, I've heard there's glass shortages with makers, and like trying to figure out what makers puts their stuff in. And, you have the squatty bottle that is birthday bourbon or 13th colony. So there's just a lot of really unique things that happen with bottles in general. So I think when it comes to branding, the cleanliness of branding and the clean lines really matter, especially if you're a new brand trying to fight for shelf space. I think it's really important that you have a unique story, but also a brand that people could get behind just from aesthetics, because you have a split-second decision between someone picking up Elijah Craig or someone picking up Whiskey War. And I'm not saying that to downplay anything, but when you think about shelf space, they're split decisions. People are either going to reach for something that looks interesting to them, or people are going to pick something that, they know is it works, right? And they know that they've had it before and they like it, and they're going to continue to like it. So with all that saying, we have these 3, we're going to talk through them, and we're going to enjoy this whiskey tonight. So we're going to start with that second fill Sauvignonese wine barrel. So this is coming in at 120.5. So it's their classic rye-heavy mash bill that has been second aged in the original Barrel Select Batch number 1, high-end Sauvignonese wine cask for 24 months. Total age of 5 years. So again, 120 proof, or 60% AVP. So let's dive in here. It's been a while since I've just kind of like shot the crap by myself, so apologize for any bad whiskey tasting that may happen. I still think I got it. I don't think it just goes away because I have not just drank on Instagram on Thursday nights. But I'm excited to do this, because one of the things I really became fond of was the idea of, prepping for World's Top Whiskey Taster last year and trying all these different unique spirits to widen my horizon to get ready for that. And I miss those opportunities, just drinking through different spirits from different brands across the country, because there's a lot of people that do similar things, but yet your whiskey turns out completely different. And so with that being said, here's the second fill Sauvignonese wine barrel. I like the smell on this one just right off the bat. The only Sauvignonese wine that I've ever had was an ash fill at the Biltmore. So I don't really have a good palate for what that is overall, but it's really light, florally. Kind of has like a perfume in its bouquet of nosing notes, almost honey in there as well. It's really, really nice smelling, light fruit, but that honey note is really crisp in there. And I think that's the melding of that high rye bourbon or high rye whiskey mash bill, rye-heavy mash bill is what they call it, just kind of showing up there. So let's dive in. And that's really nice. So this is nice because it reminds me of the honey barrels that people are doing, but it has like a natural sweetness to it. It's got a big bouquet. That perfumey type notes shows through more on the palate than it does on the nose. It's there on the nose. It's not like potpourri, but it's perfumey in a good way. Like I like it. It's refreshing. It doesn't drink like 120. I think that's, the main thing that I take away from this one is it does pack a punch. It does have full flavor. Does it give me a Kentucky hug or an Ohio hug in this instance? No. It just drinks really subtly with a big pop of flavor, short finish, but a huge big like bouquet of flavors right in your palate. But the honeyness to this is what I can't get over. Like it's really well done if you like honey-ish flavored things. But this has no honey in it, but it's just like that honey note is big to me. Like almost honeysuckle. But like one of those things about being outside all day and the floralness of like being around trees blooming and things like that, I think that's probably playing into what I'm getting from an overall tasting profile perspective. But I do think it's a really unique flavor profile that's really kind of making me want more to drink. It's zapping the taste buds, it's drying those out and like giving me flavor of like, I'm salivating to continue to drink more, which is one of the best things I think you can do with whiskey. There's like drying whiskeys or drying wines. And then there's like wet whiskeys and wet wines. That one where your mouth just is like, it's coated. It's great. This one like sucks it all away in a good way. All the flavor profile that's there. And it's like, oh, have another drink. Oh, have another drink. And by the time you know it, you've drank a 200 milliliter of Whiskey War second fill Sauvignon wine barrels. We're not there yet. We're just on the first pour, guys. But overall, I really like that. From just a way to start out the night, like that's a good like 1-2 base pour. That will hold up to a rock or a drop of water. Super easy. I do think a drop of water in there will expand, give you some more oils, more flavors, more tannins. But I like that one. Coming off the last time I had a high bank was the Midnight Cask, and it just wasn't for me. So to turn around and get this one and try it out, like I really like this one. I think this is one of the better offerings that I've had from them. And I stand behind it. I think they're doing some really unique things from a fill perspective and, innovation perspective. I still think I go back to the episode that we had at the beginning of the year, what's trending. I mean, it's going to be finishes. Finishes are going to trend for a long, long while. Because there's only so much you can do with, 4 grain, 3 grain, 5 grain mash bills. Or rye, maybe 2 grain. And that's why I think you see people pivoting to these ideas of barrel select finishes or single malt finishes, because there's so much more variation you can get out of that. Now, can you go from a pot still to a column? Yes, you could. And that's going to give you some differences. Could you do a lot of different things? Yes, you definitely could. But I think at the brass tacks of this is that when you're a smaller distillery like High Bank is, which there's no knock on them, you have to find ways to be innovative. And they've done a really good job trying to find creative casks and creative ways of tasting the whiskey to show up. And I think bottle design and things like that really do them justice. So next we're going to move into the Spanish Madeira wine barrel. So I know a lot of people have jumped in on the Madeira casks over time, and that's great. I never have. Belle Meade would be one of the big ones that a lot of people just was like, oh, I love the Madeira Belle Meade is the one I think of when it comes to my head. And I'm sure I may have had Madeira along the way, but I don't recall it being on a label of anything that I've bought or anything that I've drank. So if someone calls me out and say, oh, you've had Madeira through X, Y, and Z, I'm sorry. It's just not ringing a bell to me. And the Belle Meade Madeira is the one that like comes to my head. And I know I've never had that one. So all in all, excited to try this. This one's a little lower APV. So we have 57 or 114 proof. So it's our classic rye-heavy mash bill that's been aged or been second aged in high-end Spanish Madeira wine casks for 18 months. Total age on 4.5. So they're doing extended ages. So I'm going to pause on this one for a second and just talk about its extended aging for a brief moment. Because a lot of times what people don't realize is aging in a barrel is tough. Go ask Christian Huber for like a long delineation on why that is. I'm not going to get into that. But it's tough because most of the time, you're looking at 4, 5, maybe 6 months, maybe CR, VDN cask that we have with Huber's at Starlight, for a 12-month, just short of 12 months, so 11-month finish. So these extended ages. So when you're getting into, a 27-month finish like they have on the second fill Sauvignons or an 18-month on the Madeira, the only ones I can think of that are super long like that are the Thomas S. Moore. And so like, I remember chatting with Danny from 1792 and Danny was talking about, how hard it was to create the Thomas S. Moore line and talking through these extended ages of 24 to 36 month aging of these barrels in that Thomas S. Moore collection. And I think that's what makes it really tricky. Like, how do you, continue to monitor that to get the right whiskey that you want? And that's labor intensive. Like, that's not easy to do either. So when you think about these extended ages, there's a lot of craftsmanship that comes in because barrels are like bell curves, right? So it's got to ramp up, and it's going to hit, its climax at some point. But you hope, and this is what I think, my personal opinion, is that when it climaxes, okay, that's like maybe a false plateau almost. So not that first hill is everything. So you get maybe 7-8 months and you're like, oh, that's awesome. But maybe there's a second hill at 24 months or 36 months. And so I think that's what you're getting with the Sauvignons and maybe the Spanish Madeira that we're going to jump in here in a second, is that they could go with those extended ages, that it had a second life. And because they're second fill, they probably needed to age a little bit longer. So let's tease that out a little bit. First fills are great. But sometimes first fills are so pungent that you gotta take them out 5-6 months in, or 90 days in, or 2-3 weeks in. We've done a lot of finished whiskeys on our podcast, like the Sauternes finished broken barrel, or the VDN, or some other ones, right? Like, we know that sometimes it's 3 months, 6 weeks, 9 weeks, whatever. But I think that's the beauty of this. And especially when you get into second fills, how long can you extract all of that wine out of there? Because they're not necessarily as wet as they once were because all that first fill is gone. So you got to go into the wood and you got to really let that extract out over time. And so let's dive into this Spanish Madeira wine barrel. So 113.5 proof again here on this. So I do, one of the things I'll notice and just share with you is the richness and color right off the bat. Difference from the second fill Sauvignons to the Madeira. The Madeira is just darker as a spirit, I do believe. So this one comes out looking like, not motor oil, but it's definitely deep brown mahogany type color, really rich, and right on the nose, it's like a preserve is what I kind of get. So like a blackberry preserve or a blueberry preserve, just rich and dark and like jelly, almost consistency in the smell. And so that sugar sweetness is right up front, which is really interesting to me. And again, I've never, knowingly had Madeira. And I like that the rye kind of gives us this citrus on the back end. So that rye-heavy mash bill. So you get this sweetness and you gotta let it linger there. You gotta sniff through it. And then you get this nice wave of citrus that kind of mellows out the sweetness of it all and gives you like a burst of life, is what I'll call it. This smells really, really nice. It smells like an even whiskey. It's not pungent. Again, 113.5. I expect some of these to kind of like blow my nostrils away. These aren't really blowing my nostrils away, which is great. It doesn't have like, I think the Sauvignons, which was really interesting, had that really big honey note. This one has like a citrus note, and there's like a little apple in there as well. And that jelly note, blackberry, blueberry, type of note that I'm getting. Not a whole lot on the nose, and maybe it's just because I've been outside all day. But I do like the nose. It's super simple. I think sometimes we try to overcomplicate how the nose is. I like to keep it to 2 or 3 notes, just me personally. Okay. So this one What this reminds me of a ton, and I know they're completely different, so hear me out on this, but what this reminds me of from a taste perspective, it reminds me of Derringer from Rabbit Hole. It almost drinks a little weedy, but there's like this peanut butter jelly thing going on with a little hint of citrus, like a twist of orange. And my God, like this is dessert, like defined. You put this with like a piece of chocolate or chocolate ice cream and you got a good evening. I like this like as a dessert drink. Like everyone needs to have a few dessert bourbons or dessert finished whiskeys. This is it. Like this is a great finished dessert whiskey. Now I stand by it today. People don't always think about it, but the Derringer is one of my favorites. I talk about that as a gift. I also talk about it as a dessert whiskey. Like this fits into that mold of whiskeys that I would love to have a drink as a nightcap, finish the evening off. A lot of flavor, but it's sweetness. So it could be that dessert. If you just had like one piece of chocolate, I think this is really, really nice and well done. So, kudos to you all, High Bank, for, creating a really, really elegant yet nuanced pour in this Spanish Madeira wine barrel. Yeah, on a second drink, I like it even a little bit more. It does have a little vermouthiness to it, but I don't think that's a bad thing. But I think that may be the Madeira. So if you like Manhattans, where I'm fringe Manhattan, like actually I would say I'm don't care for Manhattans. This one has a little vermouth. It's like a drop of it. From a flavor profile perspective, like this is drinkable to me. The Midnight Cask was like almost too vermouthy. So like, that's why, like when I talk about High Bank, I use that one as a barometer of what's maybe too vermouthy or too Manhattan-y for me. This one, I know it will have a home. Like this is a gift I'll get for someone, because this one is super solid. And I know someone that will really love it. You ever drink a whiskey and you're like, I know who it is. Like, I know who I want to buy this for. I know who I want to pour this for. I know who I want to buy this for, and I know who I want to pour this for. Like, it's just super simple. He used to be my boss, no longer, but still got to take care of your friends along the way. That's what I'll say about that. So I'm really excited as we, transition out of the whiskey into the gin. And this will never be the Bourbon Gin podcast. It'll always be the Bourbon Lens. But I really do like gin. So I really want to say thank you to Scott for really kind of pushing me on this, because gin is something I know he loves. And it's been something that I've really grown from an acquired taste perspective. And we've had a lot of really good gins, just like stopping in at distilleries. So I'm really excited about this. And again, I love the branding. I love the Statehouse idea and all of this. So Statehouse Gin Barrel Select, Whiskey War Cabernet, batch number 4. So 41, 82 proof, aged 27 months in Cabernet Sauvignon wine barrels that previously aged batch 2 of Whiskey War Barrel Select. Our longest aged Barrel Select gin to date, awarded a silver medal at the 2022 San Francisco World Spirits Competition. So here we go. Again, just as a reminder, all bottles go on sale Friday, June 10th. So these will all be online on sale Friday, June 10th. So when this podcast comes out, you'll have 5 days to get your money in order to go pick it up. Limit one bottle of each product per person. So we're just giving you a good preview. These bottles are coming up for sale June 10th. High Bank's not sponsoring us, but what I'll tell you is, could be a great Father's Day gift. Going back to this Statehouse Gin Whiskey War Cabernet. Holy, like when they say citrus forward, they're not lying. It smells, I kid you not. Like we've had some whiskeys that have tasted or smelled like it. There is nothing in my life that I've ever smelled that replicates the same smell and flavor profile of a orange slice candy that I've ever had in my life. And that is the biggest compliment, because I remember, you got to think about like there's a time and a place for everything, right? So the time and the place is road trip with dad. My mom and sister would fly. Me and my dad would drive. So we'd have a car, and my dad would pick up orange slices at the first gas station that we'd go to, and we'd orange slices and have, some sugary soda, probably Mountain Dew, nothing great for us. And we'd hit the road and, on we went. But this just reminds me of my childhood. And that is the biggest compliment that I can give anyone, because it is literally one of my favorite smells in this world. You get a little bit of that gin, but like I said Mountain Dew, and now my mind smells Mountain Dew and orange slices. It's so crazy how powerful your mind is to trick you into things. But it smells heavenly. Oh, that is ridiculously smooth. A little bit of pine, which I like, balanced with citrus, balanced with like I'm going to say Mountain Dewy taste to it. Like I love this. Like, I think I've progressed in the order of things I like. The Sauvignese was really good. The Madeira, I think, tops the line at dessert drinks that I want to have. But this for summer, I mean, ding, 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 ding. Like, great job, High Bank. Great job. Like, this is out of this world. Great for me. This is something that after the podcast is over, I will pour another one of these. This is well done. So if you're a gin fan and you want something that's great for summer, High Bank Gin, Statehouse, knock them dead. This one's good. It's a great summer pour. I'm all in on it. But overall, this lineup is great. It speaks to me just from my flavor profiles, what I like. I think the second fill Sauvignese is more your session whiskey. You could have it over time. You could drop a drop of water in it, but it's perfect for spring, summer, because it has that honey bouquet type note to it. That dessert, and you're around a campfire. There's a spot for that Spanish Madeira. And then if you just want a summer drink by the pool over ice, or like with a soda, like soda water, boom, Statehouse. That's it. That's all you need. Twist a lime and you're golden. Great lineup. I really want to say thank you for High Bank for sending this out. Really enjoyed this. It's been a while since I've done this. So thanks everyone for hanging out with me tonight and dealing with me for 30 minutes of this episode. But I miss this conversation, and I hope you feel the passion around this, because it's a lot of fun. I think at certain points in time, we have to take a step back. And that's what I've done, personally. And Scott, I just, I hope he hears this, and I hope he leaves this in. Hope you all know, like, I'm super appreciative for Scott Dilley, like, and what he does for the podcast and everything to keep us moving forward. Couldn't ask for a better podcast mate. Couldn't ask for a better co-host and, content creator and all of those things. Like, Scott does a gazillion things for the Bourbon Lens, and I'm super appreciative of what he does and how he handles our business, because he's a class act. So I didn't want to first say, thanks to my partner as he'll edit this. So thank you, Scott, for everything you do for the Bourbon Lens. And thank you all for everything you all do for us. It's because of your passion, your following, your conversations that we get energy out of this. This is something that Scott and I do for fun. And I would say thank you a million times over for everyone who's ever listened to a podcast. And we're really excited just to ratchet up the ability to put out more content and give you more stories and more information. So make sure you're liked and subscribed to the podcast. We're going to put all that information out. That Off Hours with Bourbon Lens will drop on Wednesdays. It'll be in the same content feed as that. So make sure you're liked and subscribed. So we're going to put out additional content, and we're super excited about that. And we're excited to partner with Off Hours. Again, it's Father's Day right around the corner. Check out manscaped.com. Get the best in men's grooming out there on the market. I've tried many products, and this one is my favorite. 20% off, free shipping. Use code BourbonLens at checkout. You can go to our social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and check out Bourbon Lens. We'd love it. Interact with us. We want you all to have that conversation with us. If you don't like that, we have a lot of people that email us these days. Email us, thebourbonlens@gmail.com. Scott and I will email you back, I promise. And lastly, if you want curated content. We got some cool stuff coming up. Patreon.com/Bourbon Lens. Fort Hamilton is joining us next Monday when this podcast drops. I'm so excited to hang out with Alex for a little bit. And we have a lot of cool things coming up. So we're getting all those things squared away. And again, super thankful for the opportunity to work with High Bank tonight and their curation of these 3 whiskeys. Check out their limited release coming out June 10th, 11 a.m. online purchases only, with pickup at their store in Columbus, Ohio. So check out these. If I had to pick one, Statehouse Gin would be the one, but everyone's up to their choices. Again, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Bourbon Lens. And until next time, cheers.